Hello there, this is question MM066 of the Maths Methods Sharpened Study Guide. So we've got, on the axis below, sketch the graph of h of x equals 2 over x take 3 plus 1, where the domain is R except for 3. And we need to label all axis intercepts and asymptotes of the graph. So I'm just going to rewrite this equation here so I can use this other piece of paper for you guys. Take that away. So we've got our axis here, and what we are trying to do is draw this graph. So the first things first is to recognize what kind of graph this is, and it is a hyperbola. The reason that we can tell that is because we have an x on the bottom of a fraction, and it's just x to the power of 1. So that tells us that this is a hyperbola graph. Now, a hyperbola graph has two asymptotes, a vertical and a horizontal, and it's very, very easy to tell what those asymptotes are going to be. So, first things first is our horizontal asymptote. This is our horizontal asymptote. Where y equals positive 1, there is a horizontal asymptote. So, that's our first thing, is to draw that asymptote. Now, for those of you who don't know, an asymptote is a line which the graph continuously approaches but never reaches. So, our y value is never going to be positive. Oh, sorry, that was on positive 2. My bad. Our y value is never going to be positive 1 because of the way that this graph works. So that's our horizontal asymptote. Our vertical asymptote is given by whatever's on the bottom of here. So if the denominator equals 0, an asymptote occurs. So what value of x does need to occur for this to equal 0? And the answer is positive 3. So it's always the negative version of whatever this is, but just keep in mind that if there's a coefficient in front of x, that's going to change. So basically just work out for what value of x does that equal 0, and the answer here is positive 3, which means that there's going to be a vertical asymptote at positive 3. And what you want to do is label both of these. So you've got x equals 3, y equals 1. And now what you want to do is actually try and figure out what the graph's going to look like. So we know that because it's a hyperbola and this number here is positive, that the graph is going to come down here somewhere and somewhere down here like that. So what we need to do now is work out our intercepts, because we also need to label those according to the question. So we need to work out a y-intercept and an x-intercept. Let's do our y-intercept first, just why not? Where x is equal to 0. So I would actually write for y-int x equals 0. h of 0 is equal to 2 over negative 3 plus 1, which equals 1, take away 2 and 3, which is 1/3. So our y-intercept is 1/3, which let's say occurs here. And for our x-intercept, that occurs when y equals 0. So 0 equals 2 over x take 3 plus 1, which means we get negative 1 equals 2 over x take 3. We times both sides by x take 3, which means that we get 3 minus x equals 2. That was a weird ass 2. Which means that x equals 1. So our intercept occurs at x equals 1. And y equals 1/3. There's no intercept on this side because it's never going to touch that axis. So we can now draw this side here and this side over here. This may be a little hard to draw, but let's go with it. All right, I think that's okay. In your exams, in your SACs, use a pencil. There's nothing worse than drawing on an axis that's been given to you in pen and it's wrong. So use a pencil, unlike I've just done, which I should have done because this is actually the perfect example. If I'd drawn this in pencil, I could have just rubbed it out, obviously. So use your pencil, that's worth 3 marks. As with all graphs, they start by giving you 3 marks and then take away marks for things that you haven't done. So make sure you've labeled your asymptotes, your horizontal and your vertical. Make sure you've labeled your coordinates. So we need to label 1, 0 here and 0, 1/3 here. We've labeled our intercepts, we've labeled our asymptotes, and that's it. I like to label the actual equation. You don't have to do this. You won't lose marks if you don't do this. I just do it because I like to. There's no other reason for it. But that's exactly how you draw this graph. So let us know if you have any questions about this in the comments. The biggest thing is to just recognize that this is a hyperbola, and you'll only get to that point by practicing. So practice, 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 and practice makes perfect.